Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. I am your host, Matt, joined as always, just on audio though, by host and producer Josh.
Can't see me smiling
Apologies.
today.
Apologies for audio only. I'm not feeling great this week and I don't want to infect anybody else. So I'm just staying home, keeping it chilled. None of that is depriving me from discussing all of the action that's happened in the UFC last weekend. Blaydes versus Pavlovich is in the books. Decent card, not the most exciting. Plenty of talking points, though. Main event, absolutely stunning. Pavlovich destroying Curtis Blaydes in the first round to solidify himself as certainly either the next title contender or the guy in line to fight the winner of John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, if that fight goes ahead. A few talking points down the card as well. Contested, no contest, a bit controversial between Bobby Green and Jared Gordon. We'll be discussing that. We'll be discussing a couple of epic comeback wins that screwed us on our picks for this week, and a bit of news that's been going on as well. I think, Josh, first place to start, it's got to be the main event. We both picked Blaydes, man,
Look,
and I knew there was a chance that Pavlovich could take him out. And we discussed this on the
yeah,
pick show.
yeah, we.
But man, that guy's scary, dude. I'll let you have the floor, but I just want to say he went at Curtis Blaydes like there was nothing that Curtis could throw at him that he needed to be concerned about. No fear, no fear of the takedown, no fear of the striking, just bulldozed him. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Go ahead.
What? To be honest, Blaze did tag him at one point because, I'm watching this the next day, so I know how long is left on the playback. So I'm like, oh, well, this is a first round finish. This does not look good for our boy Curtis. Then I do see that moment where Curtis tags him, and it's like, well, what was he supposed to do differently? He couldn't just shoot blindly on him. I did think that when he did go southpaw stance, if that was something they've been training, if he could kind of work that jab a little more, because when he wasn't just loading up on haymakers and throwing wildly, he was able to land on Pavlovich, and he was never going to go blow for blow with him. But if he was going to create an opportunity where he could take Sergey down, he was going to have to set it up with the hands. He had that one moment early where he did kind of earn Pavlovich's respect, but then after that, Pavlovich just went nah. As soon as he shrugged off that weak takedown, it wasn't a weak takedown attempt, but it was naked. It was shot from far out. It wasn't the takedown of a confident man. It was a guy that really needed to take that fight to the ground as quickly as he could. So as soon as Pavlovich just went into berserk mode, it was geez, yeah. This guy's fucking terrifying.
He's a tank,
Does he fight the winner of Jones, Miocic? Only if Miocic wins. I'm convinced that Jones is retiring, at least for a time after this fight with Miocic.
Well,
so I don't think Pavlovich is going to get that money fight like that. But
his next fight's for the belt.
Yeah, if
for the belt.
If Jones wins and retires, then Pavlovich is the first name on the slate for the vacant title. So, and depending on how Miocic loses, I would assume Stipe is back in there. If not, I mean, shit. I feel like Stipe. And maybe Miocic fights Garn for the right to fight Sergey. I don't know.
I don't know if Miocic wants any of that fucking Russian smoke, dude. That guy is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. There is no way he's 6'3". He is way bigger than 6'3". How do you deal with somebody that has an 84-inch reach with a low grounded stance that comes at you with no fear, throws technical straight punches, fast, in combination, and hits like a Mack truck? Oh, and by the way, his takedown defense, I don't even know if it's good. It's not even been tested yet. We all thought Curtis Blaydes was going to be the guy that could test it, and he couldn't even get going. This guy's terrifying. I don't see anyone right now. I don't see anybody beating him. I really don't. Not if John Jones is going to retire before he fights him. maybe Tom Aspinall, but we need like that Curtis Blaydes fight for Tom Aspinall. That was meant to be his big step up. Let's see who you are. And his knee blew out. So we still need to see him do what Pavlovich, not in the same way, but beat Curtis
Yeah,
Blaydes the way that Pavlovich just had.
Aspinall was a freak thing. Aspinall could definitely be up there, but again, I've got to see him come back. He's probably got to win a couple fights. Garn's and if Miocic gets like starched, him and Garn have both got to win at least one fight, right? Um. Oh, by the way, we haven't talked about it yet. Chris Daukaus is moving down to light heavyweight as well. Is he gonna go full Tanabosa? Although I'm still reserving my opinion on Tanabosa at 205. I want to see him fight at least once more. Who the fuck else is there at heavyweight right now that's gonna push Pavlovich? So
There's
yeah,
nobody, dude. Chris
probably
Curtis Blaydes.
By the way, Miocic, you completely disrespected. Way more well-rounded game than Blaydes. Way better on the feet. Has a much better chance of setting up the takedowns. And I mean, like, let's not forget, this guy fought Ngannou twice, and he won one of those fights. Man's a legend.
I love Miocic. He's also 40 years old, and I would still back me. Listen, I would back Miocic in any fight, in any situation to have a chance. But Sergey is rising right now, dude. I think if he doesn't get an immediate title shot, the only other fight that would make sense would be him versus Cyril Gane. And I think that maybe the speed of Gane could give him some issues. I don't think it would be as easy for him to land as it's been with him fighting guys like Lewis and Blaydes and Taito Ivasa. But I think he'd be fast. I think his hands are faster than Cyril Gane's. I just think the guy's really scary.
Here's the weird thing, right? Miocic, John Jones, Gane. All three guys, fucking legends, amazing fucking heavyweights. All of them are in a position where they need to win at least one fight to earn the right to fight Sergey Pavlovich for the belt. That's a weird thought, right?
That's a crazy thought.
Yeah, here's the thing. I ran out of Baki 2 days ago, so I've been smoking blunts. I'm a changed man.
I like it. I like this positive change in your life.
That's well, I'm going straight back to spending a normal amount of money on weed as soon as I get more Baki, but is what it is.
However impressive this was for Pavlovich, I feel like we have to talk about Curtis Blaydes. I mentioned this before when we were talking about the Derek Lewis fight way back when. He's definitely improved in his striking, but I think there's two glaring issues. I think he gets caught in trying to win a striking battle without maybe looking at his opponent more specifically and kind of forming the game plan and giving himself the best chance to win against his opponent. And I think the biggest issue Curtis Blaydes has got is I think his striking is decent and his wrestling is fantastic, but he hasn't shown the ability to mix those into an MMA game. He's either striking or he's wrestling. And the transitions between those two are very noticeable. And I think that's going to be...
I would say, though, the way I saw him going to switch stance in this one early on, I did think, that there was the idea that they were going to fight southpaw occasionally and use the hands to set up shots more. It's just he got rocked, then he rocked Pavlovich, then he got fucked. Everything was a bit short-lived. We didn't really get to see the game plan on this one. But I'd like to think that I was seeing a bit more improvement with the way that stand-up might tie in. Totally valid comment, though. I just wanted to kind of chime in and say, I think he's trying, though. I think he is trying.
When he was coming up the ranks and when he was fighting the Junior DeSantis's of the world on his way out, oh god, what's his name? Jairzinho Rosenstreich, all these kind of guys. This is when you stand up for a little bit and you practice your striking. Look at how Stipe fought Ngannou. Stipe had no interest in prolonging any stand-up encounter for longer than he needed to because he's fighting a monster power puncher that can knock him out at any point and probably hasn't seen a third round in his life. Certainly not for a while. And he's in a 5-round fight. and wants to take some of that energy out before he starts trading strikes. That should have been Curtis Blaydes' game plan here. It shouldn't have been, I'm going to fill this guy out on the feet, get my striking, use that to set up the shots. I think there should have been an emergency look at, right, what does this guy do? He charges forward and he tries to knock people out in the first round. And he's just done it 4-5 times in a row in his last few fights. What am I going to do in the first round? I'm going to try everything I can to take this guy down. I know he's going to be aggressive. I know he's going to come at me. So I know that should at least give me the opportunity to shoot in on some double legs, to shoot in on some single legs. And now he's looking at this point in his career where it's like Curtis Blaydes beats everybody until you put him against a knockout artist, a true knockout artist in the division. And he just can't avoid getting clipped early. It's the biggest flaw in his career. 4 losses can all be derived exactly to this. And I mean, I was shocked when I watched it live. It broke my heart a little bit seeing his facial expression when they were announcing the winner and held Sergey's hand up. And you could just see it on Curtis Blaydes' face that I'm here again. Like, again, I'm one shot away. I'm one fight away from a title shot. I'm one fight away. And it's the same type of guy that's beaten me in the same fucking way.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, he's probably at his peak. He's done well. He's overperformed in some fights. He's had favourable matchups in others. You know, the only real power puncher I think he ever got past was Mark Hunt. And that's a guy that's got like a 500
he
record.
beat Jairzinho.
That's true.
Jairzinho. He beat Volkov.
Volkov's not even the bigger Volkov 2.0. He's not like a real he's just a heavyweight. He's not like a pure knockout artist. He's not.
I get what you're saying. But he beat Jairzinho wrestling. He didn't stand with Jairzinho. He took him down.
Yeah, I don't think he did the same with Hunt, did he? Pretty sure he just took Hunt down.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think back. How fucking long ago was that fight?
I just feel like Blaydes is going to look back at this fight and think, I had all the skills that I needed to come in with a game plan where I take this guy's explosive striking away from him, at least for the first round. And I feel like he got the mistake wrong. He should have looked to wrestle first and then start landing his strikes later in the fight. And he paid for it, man. And Pavlovich marches on, and the guy's confident. He's on a pretty damn good win streak. The way that he moved forward on Curtis Blaydes, there was a recklessness to it, but I think some of that is just the pure confidence that you get when you're knocking everybody out in the first round. You have nothing to fear. It's like
he comes forward recklessly defensively, but he is still accurate with his hands. Like, that's the scary thing. Like, when he throws the kitchen sink at you, it's like a laser guided kitchen sink.
Yeah. And one thing I will say that kind of, I think, maybe affected the takedowns for Curtis Blaydes a lot is he was throwing that uppercut, that very awkward uppercut where it was kind of winding low down and from the side. And he was constantly throwing it out there just to sort of let Curtis know, try and shoot under my strikes. And that could be waiting for you.
Yeah.
Well, it's a huge win for him. It's a massive loss for Curtis Blaydes. One, though, that does set up the possibility of them running back Blaydes versus Aspinall. If Aspinall comes back in July, fights Marcin Tybura, wins that fight, I think him versus Blaydes could be a good matchup. Redo that one. Right the wrong.
Yeah, why not?
Let's talk about our co-main event. Brad Tavares taking on Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva responding extremely well from his loss to GM3. And I mean, really, it's a weird thing. It's like you look at the guy that just beat Brad Tavares on the weekend, and you look at the guy that went 3 rounds competitively with Alex Pereira, and it's not the same guy that lost to GM3. When he's on his day, Bruno Silva's a beast. I just think he's a bit inconsistent.
Even in this fight, Brad Tavares was controlling this fight. Bruno Silva, when he was smart enough to stay out of Brad's punching range. It's weird. His line of engagement was all off. Like, Brad would happily let him sit in Bruno's kicking range, which just isn't really like Brad's forte. But then as soon as like Bruno Silva wanted to engage, he wouldn't start from there. He'd move forward, and instead of hitting him constantly with that 1-2 that was so successful, he'd start fucking around and just kind of get chewed up by Brad's counters. And it was like, do you know what? Tavares is going to be a little bit better than you when it comes to the close quarter boxing. So why don't you do what you're good at? Like, throw that 1-2 straight down the middle, get back out of range, get in a kick-in range, and make him move backwards, rather than just walking into his shots. But you know what? It paid off because he was able to fucking rock Tavares, get the finish. Great. The end of the fight, great. Moments in the fight, great. Other moments in the fight, just think, is it pride? Is it ego? Is it nerves? Is it, kind of trying to bounce back? What is it? But it was quite an inconsistent 1 round fight for me. Just I don't know. By this point, I knew I wasn't doing great on the picks as well, so I really wanted this one to fucking come in. So maybe it was just me watching it a bit anxiously, but I just felt like Silva's a bit better than that. Tavares was doing great until he got rocked as well. I'm not shitting on Tavares at all.
For any listeners out there, Josh went 5-11 on the card. I went 6-11 on the card. So not terrific from either of us, but I just edged you out. Not due to this fight where you picked Bruno Silva and I picked Tavares.
Yeah, I was nervous as this one started.
Well, just to touch on some news, this was the co-main event. The reason this fight was the co-main event is because Song Yudong versus Ricky Simone, which we did a pick for, has now been moved to the main event of next week's card. It was next week, I believe, was meant to be Moicano versus Sarukian. Moicano got an injury, couldn't find an opponent for Sarukian, so Song Yudong's getting the main event treatment along with Ricky Simone. I think it might be Ricky Simone's first main event.
Yeah, his fight with Uriah Faber was just like fucking on a pay-per-view prelim or something, right? That's like the biggest one I could think of where there's like maybe, but like this, it must be his first main event.
He's been a few co-mains. He's definitely been in the co-main event a few times, but I'm pretty sure this is his first main event slot. Certainly his first 5-round main event slot.
Nice.
So big for him. Although I'm going to be honest, it does feel like a bit of a letdown because we're not getting this fight on this card. And now a fight that I already sort of took for granted being on last weekend's card, you're now telling me is the main event on next week's card. It's next couple of weeks.
Plus, Moicano Sarukian would have been great.
That would have been... I didn't like Moicano's chances in that.
I didn't say I like Moicano's chances. I don't think it's going to necessarily give me a competitive fight. But that boy can bang.
It would have been fun.
And he can grapple. And if he does get rocked, he can fight at range, or when Sarukian closes, threaten a takedown. So Sarukian's always got to be a little cautious. He's always going to be a threat. But I would imagine Sarukian's going to put him away handedly. I just think that would be a good fucking fight.
Well, that fight's getting rebooked, I think, for later in the year. So we will discuss that fight when it happens.
And I think they're doing the same for Oliveira Dariush, right?
That is on UFC 289 now. Perfect. And we have a replacement fight for UFC 288, which we will discuss after we've talked about last week's action. Let's talk about the controversy. Let's talk Bobby Green, Jared Gordon.
Is it controversial?
Well, it's only controversial because it's a weird, unfortunate ending to the fight, but I don't think there's any controversy in the result. Even fight, both guys were having their moments. Bobby Green lands what he's meaning to land an elbow, ends up basically landing a pretty forceful headbutt with the strong part of his head right into the soft part of Jared Gordon's face. Wobbles Jared Gordon, lands more shots that drop Jared Gordon, and then finishes him on the ground. Bobby Green, obviously, thinking he's got his extra money. He's getting his win bonus, maybe even a performance bonus. then finds out it's a no contest, has not responded well. I just think it's one of those things, man. There's no doubt it's a headbutt. You can't argue with it. You can't
Yeah,
debate it.
if it had been caught as well, the likelihood is that the fight probably would have continued. And at that point, Bobby Green has a significant advantage. So, it's one of those things. If the ref had caught it, Bobby Green probably would have made his money. As well, he was talking a lot before the fight about how he was legally going to change his name because now he can finally afford it. Because he'd come to like an agreement with like a lot of his custody cases, but he was really banking on that money. Like he he hasn't really had money this entire fucking time. He was finally gonna have some fucking money. He was gonna get his bonus. He was thinking maybe even, he's up with a shout for something like a performance bonus. And then no contest. So
that's harsh.
He was just going to change his name legally to King. No first or second name, just King.
Yeah, just King. Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying it's unfortunate. And the problem is that Bobby Green, he's in it for the money. You know what I mean? He's not in it to have a shiny record. He's not looking to win titles. He's looking to have fun fights, win fights, and get paid doing it. That's his motivation. So he's not looking at this in terms of, but it's not fair to Jared Gordon's record. He's looking at it as we just went from both of us getting our show money and me getting my win money to both of us still just getting our show money. And I understand that perspective. But Jared Gordon's got a career. A loss compared to a no contest can have a big effect over the opportunities that he gets. This fight was already a big opportunity for him. It was a good name as a bounce back fight after obviously the disappointment with Paddy Pimblett. And he had his opportunity of winning or losing the fight fairly taken away from him. So it's just the nature of the sport, man. The only thing you guaranteed when you walk into the cage is your show money.
I mean, I did think Gordon was winning that fight before the headbutt.
It was hard to say. I thought Gordon was landing good counters. I thought he was landing harder shots. I thought Bobby Green was doing that Bobby Green thing where he's pressuring, keeping his hands low, trying to move his head. It definitely felt like it's one of those ones where I think both guys would have felt that they were doing what they wanted to do in the fight and they were going to start opening up and getting busy. So in that regard, I think you just call it a no contest and then you run it back.
Yeah, except isn't Gordon already supposed to run it back with Paddy?
Well, this is the problem for Gordon, man, is that this is...
That's a good problem to have.
The only thing I'd say, so here's the difference. I think Paddy Pimblett's going to be injured for a little while longer anyway. Because of the storyline they've got, I think you can redo that fight with Jared Gordon and Pimblett, regardless of whether or not Jared Gordon beats or wins or loses against Bobby Green in a rematch. The only question I'd have is Bobby Green didn't really take any damage. He could probably fight in a few weeks. I don't know if Jared Gordon would be given that kind of turnaround. He did technically go unconscious.
Oh, yeah, the follow-up shots. He was fucking out. Like, he was out.
So maybe just find another fight for Bobby Green. That's the solution to this. Find another fight for Bobby Green. Let Jared Gordon rest up, and hopefully he's back and ready for Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, I think that would be the plan. Anyway, I'm almost glad he hasn't got the money to change his name right now. He should reflect on that a little more. You see, he's very upset with Paul Felder.
Yeah, but Paul Felder's all about the fairness, man. He knows how tough this sport is. We just saw, Bobby Green gave an interview on Ariel Helwani, and he was talking about the Chris Curtis versus Kelvin Gastelum fight. And he was saying, well, in that fight, there was a headbutt, and Chris Curtis went down. He hits a bunch of shots on the ground, ends up losing that round and losing the fight. Nobody stopped the fight for him. And I agree with Bobby, but my argument would be that we were both looking at that saying that that's an unfortunate situation. The solution to that isn't that we shouldn't factor headbutts into the final result. The solution is that we should be quicker to assess and factor headbutts into whether or not they've ended a fight or caused damage that's won somebody around.
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those things. If the ref had seen it, and stopped it at the time, and done the timeout, had the ref check Gordon, and if Gordon could continue, resume the fight, it would have been great for Bobby. But it just didn't happen. Was it Keith Peterson on that fight? Who the fuck was the ref?
It was, yeah.
Yeah,
And
like, go on.
one of the reasons I think Bobby Green is angry at Paul Felder is Paul Felder was very vocal that they should be factoring that in and should be calling it a no contest before they made that decision. I think maybe Bobby Green feels that he was influencing that outcome
No,
rather
it's
than
it's
letting them.
it's unambiguous. You can't get a finishing sequence off the back of an illegal shot, even if it's accidental.
I'm not saying that Bobby Green's right. I'm just saying what his opinion might
Okay,
be
yeah.
based on what his experience of events, because it's in the apex. He could probably hear Paul Felder saying that when
Well, I
he's
mean,
in the ring.
you can even hear him discussing with the production team, like, "I am calm." Like, yep,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what calm
Well, you
people
could
say.
tell they did not want him saying that.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
did not want him creating the narrative on that because I think in the production crew's mind, they'd much rather be able to see an elbow land and call it a clean knockout and have everything tied up with a neat,
Well, not even
tightly
that.
knotted
It's
bow.
just if something like that happens, like if a no contest happens, it's like let's just be professional about it. Let's not make it seem like something bad has happened, something controversial has happened, something unfortunate has happened. Just be like, well, I believe that was off the back of a headshot. So I don't know, fellas. I think this one's going to be called a no contest. Let's see what the refs decide to do. Rather than just being like, what? No way, no way. That has to be a no cut. The difference in tone is a lot. But even if I'm Bobby Green, it's like, psh, like sharp. Like you can't come after Felder like that. It's just the
Because
guys just speaking from the heart. That's all it is.
Felder's in this rare situation as a UFC commentator where he might not have become a world champion, but he's just one of those guys that everybody respects. You can't really win getting in an altercation, like getting in a disagreement with Paul Felder. You're not
He's
going to
also got a
have
pretty
that many
solid
people.
shot at kicking Bobby Green's ass. Not for nothing.
Yeah, and he's just a top dude, man. He's one of those guys that I think everybody respects. Like you can't not respect that guy. He can sit on a panel with multiple world champions and hold an equal level of reverence based on his character. I think that's very, Paul Felder's the man. And he's somebody that has a real care and compassion for fighters' careers. Like you can tell that. Like the reason he's getting him, he cared so much about making sure that that was cleared in no contest is because he knows what it's like for a Jared Gordon to have something like that happen and not get the rub of the green and not get a fair sort of representation in the result.
Yeah.
Either way, King loses out. It might be a stupid name change, but you know what? It's still better than Metal World Peace.
Yeah, Matt World Peace grew on me. I'm not gonna lie.
Fair enough. Yasmin Lucindu, this girl's a lot of fun. She had that fight against the Yasmin Uruguay girl in her
Yeah.
debut, lost that fight, but went for it. Super aggressive, loads of fun. I thought she just Brogan Walker looked like her plan was just to keep everything at kicking range, and every time she kicked, Lucindu would just use that as an opportunity to close the distance and land heavy.
Oh yeah. Like fair play to Walker for constantly trying to try. Yeah, fucking. Well, that's probably quite accurate to be honest. She was almost looking to impose her will. It was just fucking futile. Every time she tried anything, and she did keep trying, God bless her. Lucindo just fucking blasted her. She got beat worse than the Irons beat the Cherries this weekend. I don't know what more to say about this one, to be honest. This is just an arse
Problem with
whooping.
Brogan Walker, tough finalist in the season that nobody really thought had a high level of competition. She's 34 years old. That was her technically her first UFC fight after the tough finale. which he lost candidly to a fighter that we've just seen lose candidly in her first fight since that fight. It's hard to think at flyweight that Brogan Walker is going to really be the UFC level at 34 years of age. I don't see her making the improvements, and she's not fighting anybody that's, she's fighting an unranked fighter that lost her debut. This Indy moves on. Brogan, I don't think, stays in the UFC very long. Let's talk about for me, there's some controversy in this. Jeremiah Wells versus Matthew Semmelsberger. Jeremiah Wells wins by decision. Jeremiah Wells gets 3 critical takedowns that end up winning him the fight, 1 in each round. For the first 2 rounds, though, before he managed to get the fight to the ground, Jeremiah Wells was all but knocked out on multiple different occasions. Semmelsberger hurt him badly multiple times in each round, and yet somehow Jeremiah Wells gets the decision. I don't get this, Josh. Is this just me? What am I not understanding?
Look, to be honest, I could have stopped that fight in the first round. But it's it's not as egregious as the one from last week, which again wasn't really super egregious. I was just saying how I felt about it. I still scored this one for Wells. I still gave him rounds 2 and 3. I didn't give round 1 as a 10-8 because Wells did kind of fight his way back into it. I felt he did enough to make it a 10-9, but yeah, I gave it 29-28 to Wells.
I was amazed. I had a sense it was coming because all the commentators were saying that that's the direction it was going in. But for me, I don't know, man. It's just I didn't think he did that much damage on the ground to counteract him almost being knocked out on at least 2 different occasions in each of the first 2 rounds. For me, it just seemed odd, and I thought it was a little harsh on Matthew Semmelsberger.
Second round, I felt like he overcame the knockdown. First round, okay. No, that's Sem over Jedis all day, and he really did fucking have him on Queer Street. I did think it was plausible given some of the other finishes that we saw that a ref would have stopped that one. Because sometimes they would just sort of get on the same page and they start feeling it in the air tonight. But after that first round, though, yep, I give the second round to Wells. I feel like his takedowns, his ground and pound, his damage overcame the knockdown. Semi was largely kept quiet on the feet in that second round, I felt. Round 3, just the ground and pound, basically. Well, I mean, it was basically the whole fight. He's just on his back. It's just the whole third round. He's on his back, but it's just fucking. We don't score top control. We score damage, and the ground and pound made the difference there in the third. So, I know what you mean. Second rounds, you just score it on damage. It's close. I feel like Wells still gets the nod on that one. But I totally I totally see where you're coming from.
Regardless of what you think about the decision, he deserves a huge amount of credit, man, because he had to dig deep to come back from the damage he was taking in those first 2 rounds on multiple occasions. You're talking obviously about, when, stoppages and all the rest. And, we're going to go through the prelims a bit more quickly, but we'll talk about a couple of the stoppages there. A lot of it for me comes down to, is the guy trying to stay in the fight? And at no point was Jeremiah Wells not doing everything he could to try and survive, to try and keep going, to try and get in a better position, to try and avoid getting finished. And he did, man. He ends up getting the win. So fair play to the guy.
Yeah, no. It was impressive. And to get hurt that badly that early and to maintain that level of output, even if it is wrestling, which not everyone thinks is sexy, I think it is a little bit. It's just those fucking head guards they wear, I guess. But you know what I mean? He was still explosive late on in the fight. His takedowns are a fucking problem. Fair play to him. But I could have stopped that one in the first.
Fair enough. Interesting that we both have different reasons for being controversial on that one. But say, Livy. Prelims, run through these a bit more quickly. Christos Giagos just murdered Rick Glenn.
Yeah, you know, I finish as plural, but this no, it's only one other finish on the card. Yeah, this one was clean. You know, so clean that like you know when Ricky Glenn's protesting it, you're like, he just doesn't know. That's how clean it was.
It was a nice knockout and a fight I got wrong. Ronnie Yaya versus Montel Jackson. This went pretty much the way we thought it was going to go. The first time he got hit hard, it was not going to be pretty.
Yeah, no, he got some good shots in quick. Um, did think maybe let it go a little longer, but you know, fuck it.
Yeah, biggest favorite on the night pays out. Norman Dumont squeaks past Cara Rosa. This was not a fun fight.
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. I actually scored this one for Hoser, but you know, I picked him once, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it as well.
And that's a title shot, apparently. Is it?
Well, who the fuck else is there, really?
Yeah, I know this division.
Muhammad Usman, Usman Little, Usman Jr. against Junior Taffa. Oh man, I fucking hate Usman's brother, dude. He's such an uninspiring fighter to watch. And Junior Taffa should have had him out on at least, you know, he should have finished him in the first round. He definitely should have got him in the second round. I thought he really fucked this one.
Yeah. Well, look, fair play to Usman for finding a way to win this fight, but it wasn't pretty.
Again, dude, it's just like it's the same.
It was tense. Season. It was tense till the end, though. It was tense till the end. Obviously, I think we both picked Taffa on this one, right? We must have.
Yeah, we did.
So I was really. Well. We both were. I definitely was. We were rooting for him till the end for sure.
Great in the first round.
Made it a tense, interesting, fun fight for me. But you know, fair play to Usman for finding a way to win, even if it was uninspiring,
to say the least. Talking about uninspiring, William Gomi beating Francis Marshall. I had Francis Marshall. I thought he was going to win this one, but he just looked like he couldn't figure out the range.
No, apparently Gomi with two eyes is actually pretty dangerous.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Marshall just couldn't land on him.
I picked Gomi on this one. I got this one right. This was the one.
I went Marshall.
You went Marshall, I remember, yeah. I wasn't confident on that pick. Yeah, no. Francis Marshall, the problem is that never lost before. Just came up against a situation he hadn't dealt with. Couldn't find a way to adjust, really, apart from that third round.
Yeah, just ran out of time.
And Brady Highstand, man.
It was a good comeback.
This is a great comeback, dude. This is a great comeback. And this is what I mean about referees. Like, you don't have to be landing the hardest shots. If the other guy is not fighting back or is showing that he's out, you can be tapping the guy and it can be enough to finish the fight. And Dana Bakderel, who hit Brady with their kitchen sink for 2 rounds, ends up getting finished by effectively just taps. But he was done. He was rocked.
They were good shots, but it was the way Highstand has his right arm laced to control not just Danar's like leg, but essentially his posture. And then is able to maintain this position where he can just keep hitting him clean. He's got one arm sort of pinned almost like laced through his legs and Danar's, so it's like there's only so much power he can effectively generate. But I mean, it was a good finish. You can't really be like, it's not enough damage. It goes back to saying it's like it's just you're not intelligently defending yourself. Like he's just landing clean now. It is what it is.
That's my point, though. That's exactly my point. Is that you don't, sometimes it's it's what the guy's doing to respond. And Dana just couldn't get out of the position, looked exhausted, made that decision that he was happier to get hit than to try and expend the energy it was going to take to try and get up. And with 39 seconds left on the clock, Brady gets what would have been an almost certain defeat into a very improbable win.
Yeah, it was a real Paul Craig moment. It was nice.
No, good for him, man. He seems like a nice guy. And obviously, I think he lost his UFC debut. So for him to be able to finally get in the win column.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he won it. Yeah, he lost his debut again. He lost the tough finale against that. Oh, what's his name? Weird dude. very weird personality. I can't remember his name. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Ricky
Ricky something.
to fuck.
I want to say Ricky Tuco, but I think that's the name of a character in a movie.
Nah, fucking man, I'm so tired and so baked. It's been a long
The
day.
audience won't know who we're talking about, but you know who I'm talking about, which is all that matters.
Yeah, no, they'll know. Like we got close enough. They'll know exactly who we're talking about.
All right.
Anyway,
Well,
fuck it.
that
Do you just
that
quickly touch
concludes.
on because do you know what happened with Bellator this weekend?
No, but you're going to tell me.
Deanna Bennett missed weight, but Carmouche decided to put a title on the line anyway and just fucking demolished her. We were supposed to have Ray Borg versus Kyoji Horiguchi, but Ray Borg just basically pulled out of the fight. When he was like, I can't make weight, Horiguchi was like, fine, I'll fight you at 135. He was like, I can't make 135. His management team have dropped him. He's retired again. Ray Borg's
Oh
just
dear.
kind of lost the plot. I, mean, I
Oh
know he had all
dear.
that shit with his kid, but I really wonder what's like been happening since then because it's not. It's just like weight misses and weird fight cancellations and pullouts and
It 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 feels like there's more going on than just the situation with his kid.
yeah, man.
Like I don't know. Maybe the emotional stress on that has an effect on the hormonal balance of the body. I don't know, but it I think sometimes maybe he's using that. Maybe there's times he's used that as a bit of like a public excuse.
Aye, fuck knows. But we also had the conclusion of the bantamweight Grand Prix. Patchy Mix landed one hell of a knee, a step in knee on Ruffian Stutz. Finishes it in the first round. That was pretty tidy.
So a guy called Patchy Mix is now officially a world champion.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Talking about things that happen in combat outside of the UFC, did you see the or hear about the Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight?
Uh, I know that Davis won and it was a good body shot. That's all I know.
Real, real phantom knockout shot, man. Similar to Bernard Hopkins versus that the Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya.
Yeah.
Which didn't even look that hard, but it's like a good 3 or 4 seconds of Ryan Garcia trying to keep the poker face on. And then eventually he can't anymore when he sees Davis walking through and drops to the knee. And you feel for the kid because you can see that he's like looking at the ref. He's trying to like let the count get to 8, and then he's going to bring himself up, and he just can't. He just can't get himself up on 8.
Fuck. Love me a good
But
body
it
shot.
was there's it's the only thing I'd say. So it was a big step up. I think Ryan Garcia was definitely making the bigger step up in competition, less proven at that level, and it did kind of look like he was just getting schooled a little bit, certainly after the first round. But the one kind of thing that does make this a bit controversial is they fought this fight at 135, and Ryan Garcia is usually a 140 pounder. So there was a clause, a rehydration clause in the contract that on the date that on the just before he walked into the ring, he couldn't be heavier than I think 145 pounds. So there's no doubt that as a result, Ryan Garcia would have been more sucked out than he usually was, and probably a bit more dehydrated. And so you do kind of wonder, like, would that body shot have affected him in quite the same way if he was at his sort of standard weight or didn't have the rehydration clause?
Probably not. I mean, it depends on the
Yeah, because
shot,
this
though.
is
Depends on the shot, but probably not.
yeah, because these are the things that happen with boxing because there's so many different weight classes, and obviously all the guys kind of have a much bigger sort of hand in getting the contracts negotiated. You do get these situations where you can get these ridiculous clauses in. It was extremely similar with when Canelo fought Mayweather. I think he had to fight him at 152 pounds. And obviously, Canelo doesn't usually like the lightest, I think, aside from that Canelo ever fought was 160.
Yeah, it's a big jump
But yeah, but Mayweather knew he could suck him out
or a
and
big
just take
drop.
some of the power out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so big fights going on. I didn't actually realize it was the head of the end of the Bellator Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean to be honest, I knew this fight was coming up. I did think it was like a semi or quarter, but like I missed the fight live. I caught the highlights and just saw like the big fucking check and shit afterwards. So
Well, good for Patchy Mix, man.
yeah, man.
Bit
And
of news.
there's also fucking I'm pretty sure Sergio Pettis is supposed to be fighting um uh fucking Pitbull in June. So I don't know if like they decided to make the Grand Prix like an interim thing or what. But like it'd be pretty weird if Pitbull was fighting Pettis like not for the belt. So I don't really know how they've decided to like work out the belt for the Grand Prix and that.
This is
Again, long days. Come back to me. I'll try and have some shit for you by the time we do the pick show.
well, this is where the Grand Prix get awkward because obviously Pettis was only injured for that first fight, the entry fight into the Grand Prix. So obviously you then get a situation where you have to have the interim fight champion instead, but you can't have your real champion compete in this Grand Prix until after it's over. But also you can't really strip him just because he got injured for one fight.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Fucking hell. So World Grand Prix interim champion. And that's
And
some
he's got to
shit.
wait for the real one. But that also means so the interim champion would have changed hands at least once whilst the champion's been sitting on the sidelines, and then the champion's going to come back and fight a different person that isn't the interim champion, which means that the undisputed belt could change hands, which means that you might end up in a situation where when they do the title unification fight, it's with two completely different people than who first initially won those two belts.
Yep.
Mental. You gotta love Bellator.
Well,
You also gotta
to be
love
honest, their bantamweight division's fucking insane. Because I mean, like Patchy Mix only lost to Juan Archuleta, former champion. Before this fight, I think Ruffian Stotz's only loss was Dwalishvili. You know, just they've got some. They got fucking Koji Horiguchi, Magomed Magomedov. I mean, Sergio Pettis had his time in the UFC, but he's really grown since he got to like Bellator, and now you got fucking Pitbull dropping down. That bantamweight division's like pretty fucking good.
yeah, no, it's not bad. I mean, bantamweight across the world, dude, right now is just absolutely fucking crazy. You look at the top three promotions in the world in MMA and who's fighting in their bantamweight division. It's a list of absolute killers, man. UFC bantamweight list is just murderers row, top 15. Bellator got loads of great bantamweights. And who's fighting at 30, 135 and one championship?
Mighty
Demetrius Mighty
Mouse.
Mouse Johnson. He's got his trilogy fight with Moraes coming up soon.
Yeah, talking about retirement as well.
Yeah, saying it's going to be the last one. No, bantamweights are killing it right now, no doubt about it. Uh, we'll call it quits on the podcast pretty soon, but one bit of news that we've definitely got to discuss is UFC 288. Ever since Dariush versus Oliveira fell off, the UFC have been trying, desperately looking for some way that they can make the card more appealing, knowing at heart that they're not going to get as many casuals as they might want coming in for Triple C versus Aljamain Sterling. So we now have as a 5-round co-main event at £170, Gilbert Burns versus Bilal Muhammad. I'm excited for this fight. It sounds like Bilal has not quite got his way because Gilbert was the one that was really pressing at 170. And from what I've heard, Bilal was pushing really hard until the end to get it up to 185. What's your thoughts on the fight and that news I've just said? Do you think that has any effects on what the result will be?
Well, I think 185 was probably designed to be a strategic move. Like if you're gonna fight Burns, someone who used to make 155, pushing up to 185 is gonna favour Bilal's frame over Dorino's. Just end of. And I mean, how far away is it? Like, is it 2 weeks?
2 weeks. less even a week and 5 days, I believe.
Yeah, when did
Yeah,
they
because it's not
announce
this
this though?
weekend; it's
Like
next weekend.
Bilal's known for a little bit of time. He's had, yeah,
He's probably had 3 weeks' notice, which was probably just enough time for him to be able to cut the weight.
probably a pretty shit time though. So yeah,
It, what if the question is? So they've put this fight together. It sounds like they're still going ahead with Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, and it sounds like that might even headline October in Abu Dhabi. So a big reason Gilbert Burns spoke to Submission Radio, and he was talking about this, basically saying that when he initially said after the Masvidal fight, he's not taking any other fights apart from a title shot. He was figuring that Leon was going to be fighting Colby in July. So he would either be the backup for that, or it's going to be a wait till the end of the year to fight the winner. Once he found out they were fighting in October, he kind of thought, well, okay, I could sit out and maybe Bilal Muhammad ends up fighting Usman, and the winner of that's got a great argument to go back in. Or maybe Shavkat knocks some guy out and he makes a statement. He's like, no, fuck that. I'll save the card. I'll do them a favor. Bilal probably goes from, okay, well, you can still have a tough fight and maybe be a contender, but it's not confirmed, to official title eliminator. I think this makes sense for both guys.
yeah. I think your original question though, like a 185, Bilal, 170 on short notice, Dorino.
All situations being equal, who do you think wins? Best day versus best day?
Oh, so hard to say, man. Like you can never count out the bully. I just, yeah. Unless like you have, and obviously Dorino is a great specialist. It's just that some of that is going to be nullified by what Bilal does well. It's like unless you're like a super scary like unique talent, Bilal Muhammad understands how to beat you because he has such a good, well-rounded MMA game, and because he's such a smart and relentless wrestler and grinder and clincher. It's just very difficult. He's like the Dirk Cout of Neil Magny's. That's a really shit way to put it. Only people my age are gonna
That's
understand that.
terrible. That's a
But you know what I mean? Like he he fights in like almost like the perfect like modern MMA fashion. Um, he grinds. He's strong. He's smart. He can be awkward. He makes the clinch work well. You know, without having to do anything particularly like fancy or explosive. You know, uses his energy well. Constantly forces you to try and to be explosive to get out of situations. It's his risk reward kind of ratio is just very very smart and respectable, and you know, if not for an eye poke with Leon Edwards, like what position would he be in right now? Potentially, he's an interesting guy.
there's two ways you could look at that. I feel that eye poke saved him dropping ground rather than stopped him gaining ground against Leon personally. It's
Probably, but
hard with
after watching a whole week of comebacks, though, you know, you can't count anyone out.
you never know. You never know. It's an interesting matchup. I feel after up and before he fought Sean Brady, if you asked me this question, I would have said Bilal has no chance. The Sean Brady win, the way he was able to pressure him, win the fight standing up, that really impressed me. But I don't think he'd win a stand-up fight with Burns. And I feel like his willingness to engage in clinching and wrestling might get Bilal in trouble. Because I feel that if you look at the way Usman fought Gilbert Burns, he wanted nothing to do with any grappling situation. It was Gilbert Burns that at points in that fight was looking to grapple, not Usman. And that comes from many years of rolling with Gilbert, grappling with Gilbert, knowing how dangerous he can be off his back. Look at Hamzat Chimaev. Hamzat Chimaev took him down in the first minute of their fight. and had no interest in staying on the ground with Gilbert. And he said afterwards, Gilbert was throwing up triangles, he was throwing up arm bars. I didn't fucking want anything of that. He's a black belt. I could see Bilal having no fear, mixing it all together, but putting the fight into a situation where Gilbert Burns can take advantage and be lethal. But it's not a pick show.
Nah, it's not.
Other big fights, we have UFC 290 is looking stacked. Already had what's his face? Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. It's got Brandon Moreno versus Pantoja 2. And it's got Robert Whittaker versus Dricus Duplessis in a confirmed title eliminator fight.
Yeah, that would be good.
Lots of good fights coming up.
It's got to be Whittaker, but that would be a good one.
I think Whittaker wins. I would like to see Dricus fight Adesanya for just the fight build up alone. I think would be really good fun. So there's a part of me, and I hate myself for this. There's a very small part of me that kind of wants to see Rob lose just to see the division get shaken up. But then there's a much larger part of me that would love for Whittaker to starch him, win that fight, and then say, so I have it on recent accounts that it's possible to lose to the same guy multiple times and then come back and win. I'd like to try this experience out for myself, please.
Oh yeah, it'd be insane if Rob could get back to his belt, but yeah, we'll see.
Get the shot.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. And since it is getting late, I think that is going to be the show.
Yeah, man, that's it.
Right, guys, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that jazz. Look out for the pick show dropping later in the week. And as always, bye, Laurie, bye, Dave, bye, Trifo.
Bye, Laurie. Bye, Dave.